session of the Anarchist Reading Group for this term. We're very excited to have a really international and transnational, shall I say, meeting this evening. We've got Professor Claudio Rodelli over here, who's the Professor of Political Science at Exeter, and he also is the Director of the Centre for European Governance here. But he's also an active member of the Transnational Radical Party, which I have just now learned has now changed its name to the Non-Violent Radical Party. So you might hear in the course of the discussion you might hear transnational and non-violent radical parties, but they both refer to the same group, that's it, right. I'm also very, very pleased to welcome Matteo Angioli, as I said.
Angioli, yes.
Who's currently completing his Masters at the Université Libre de Bruxelles. And he's also been Parliamentary Assistant at the European Parliament, but is now a member of the Senate for the Non-Violent National Radical Party himself. So we've got one of the main people here from this party. So welcome. And he's also advisor to the Vice President of the Italian Senate. And I know there on the computer, which we've connected to via Skype. We've got Sam Lossi, who's a research fellow at the Centre for European Governance and is also co-authored the paper. Claudia is going to introduce the paper, and Matteo is going to act as discussant, and we'll be very interested to hear what Sam's got to say on the matter too. Just a quick note about how the Anarchist Reading Group generally runs. We try and sort of operate according to slightly more horizontal principles than a traditional discussion group. As such, if you have, I'm acting as chair or facilitator, we call it actually here. So if you have a direct question that you'd like to ask, can I ask you, it might sound a bit strange, to put up your hand. And if you have a direct response to something to a discussion that's going on, can you please put up 2 hands? That helps us realise basically what questions are connected to an ongoing discussion on what will constitute maybe a new kind of sort of thread of discussion. So if you could try and do that, that'd be really great. Other than that, I would say, yeah, let's kick off.
Okay, thank you very much, Cat, for having invited us to present tonight. See, I have a dilemma, because if I eat my yogurt, the flag falls down. But if I don't eat my yogurt there, I'm going to get hungry.
There is always mine if you want.
I can eat your yogurt, perhaps. And the other remark is that I'm very thankful to the colleagues from the Political Science Department who are here tonight, but obviously, although the paper contains both an academic layer and a more descriptive layer, following your rules, I will not speak in academic jargon, or at least that's the attempt. So you have to stop me if I make, if I don't respect my own commitment. Okay, Sam is there, very good. So we can start. I'm going to be brief, 20 minutes. I'll stop you at any point in time if it's boring or you want to ask questions. There's no problem. Just to say that we're talking about a very strange creature, a party that defines itself as liberal, libertarian, anti-militaristic, non-violent. So there are a bit too many labels, perhaps, for your taste attached to a single political entity. Even more interesting and intriguing is that if you look at the literature on parties, and these are just addressing the police for a second, they describe this party as suicidal, schizophrenic, perhaps it's just wrong, it doesn't fit. Also, if you look at the literature on the transnational and global activity of political parties, they say that parties typically do very little in the transnational or global arena. Single issue movements, non-governmental organizations, international organizations obviously are much more effective. So to speak of a party that has put up front the transnational element seems counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense, since typically parties work when there is a domestic arena, the domestic political system to address. So this is a kind of puzzle. How do we address the puzzle in the paper? Simply, we first very honestly describe the political menu, the repertoire of this party. We define it, obviously, but in the second part, we appraise it, we draw lessons and discuss. I think for an audience like this, because we are in Exeter and not in Rome or Milan, it's important to say that when we started writing the paper, the motivation was very simple. Sam and I thought that this party, the history of this group of people at least, had many interesting lessons for the left in Europe, especially Western Europe, which is the area of the world that we know better. And we were kind of struck by the fact that although we talk a lot about policy diffusion, emulation, and global fashions, this particular party apparently has not triggered a wave of similar parties and movements in other countries, with some small exceptions, and I'm very glad to hear from you. So essentially it's a story that starts from Italy, but is meant to address concerns of people who are not engaged with Italian politics. And obviously we've got plenty of time to discuss. Now I have to press the right button, not Sam. Stay there, Sam. The title of the paper is Four Funerals and the Party, and Nicole told me in the corridor was a good title, so I think that's an important appraisal from a colleague. Thank you very much. But the four funerals, at least the way we conceptualize them, are four trends that have stunned the left in Europe, in our view. That's very subjective. And those trends are the trends in representation. If you don't like the word trends, you say that the changes in representation that are going on across Europe, the changes in the political role of the media, how they have themselves changed politics. On the one hand, the new technologies, on the other, the fact that prime ministers speak directly to people through videos and no longer go to parliament. So the media is also a cause of the crisis of representation in Western Europe. The third funeral for the left, in our opinion, has been Europeanization, because Europeanization has constrained the options available for genuine reform in domestic policy. So we have this European arena that decides on the policies, and the national arenas that is important for elections. But then the national arena is very constrained in terms of the policy choices that can be made. Globalization then magnifies, on the one hand, the effects of Europeanization, but also enters its own problems for the left, which are problems of regulatory competition, race to the bottom in labor standards, tax competition and global tax evasion, global social irresponsibility, major multinational accountancy firms advising on tax shelters or abuse of tax regimes, so regulation, taxation, labor standards, and also the very weak structure of international organizations like the United Nations and the difficulty to come up with a global agreements on issues like environmental policy. Now, it's obvious from what we know from the political science literature in this case that these four funerals have been somewhat good news for the populist parties of the new right. I mean, who can benefit from anti-party sentiments, who can benefit from anti-migrant attitudes, who can benefit from latent racism? Well, those are the so-called new political mavericks, or in any case, the extreme parties. For us, extreme, but they pick votes from very conventional people, from Belgium to the Netherlands. The episode that started with the assassination of Pim Fortuyn. From there on, there's been a wave of episodes like that. Whereas, in a sense, the parties of the left have been somewhat at a loss. Some parties have simply reinvented themselves, trying some problematic third ways out of the four funerals, whereas other parties have withered away. We've seen transformations and also termination. Nicole, I think, is writing a book on how new parties die or succeed, which is another interesting intersecting topic. What we're seeing in this paper is that these four funerals, actually, for this party have been